Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Noah Scher, and today I'm joined by Byron Wolfe. He is a CPA, operator, and the founder of CFOAF, where he helps small business owners get smart about their numbers and keep more of what they earn. Byron, great to have you.
Hey man, great to be on. Thanks for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this.
Yes, sir. Likewise. So let's dive right in. Byron, you've worked across a ton of different industries and at some big time growth companies. So what made you want to launch CFOAF and how is it different from, what most people think when they hear fractional CFO?
Yeah, so it was really kind of out of necessity. What we have seen kind of throughout the years is the more niche you can get, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm good at starting companies. I am good at operations. I am good at sales. I'm not that great at marketing. I'm not that great at HR, but I'm really great at financials. So, with tax strategy and just, KPIs and all the financials, all the numbers that goes into running a business,
Yeah.
that's where I'm great. So I realized that we started a few, we built them, we've even sold a few, we've had some failures along the way. But the reality is most people are very, very good at maybe a few pieces of the game. They're really good at operations. Maybe they're really good at sales, but financials just really aren't their cup of tea, right? Or maybe they can't really do marketing. So what I ran into is a lot of really great operators that don't necessarily know their numbers. They don't really know how they interact. And so I kept hearing this like, we're crazy profitable and everything's great and sales are amazing. And I know I'm making tons of money, but my bank account's empty, right? And so, it led me to look into things. And so I was talking to a lot of different people that have gone through this, and things that were very obvious to them from an operational or marketing or sales standpoint weren't necessarily obvious to me. And I would struggle with them. But the financial pieces, I'm like, how do you not get this? Like, look, man, cash flow matters. You got to have cash flow. It doesn't matter what you're selling. If you sell $1 million worth of product, but nobody pays you because everybody's on a 90-day window, you didn't make any money. So, it was really out of that necessity of so many people that just, they don't have that. And they can't afford a two, three, $500,000 CFO to come in and like give them that game. And so fractional CFO space allows me to have an impact in a lot of different industries, a lot of different companies in bite-sized pieces. So it's kind of the same impact, but I don't need to know everything. You said a minute ago, you said a lot of different industries. And so I've had that question. They're like, well, you're not in my industry. How can you be my fractional CFO? And my answer to that is like, I shouldn't have to know your industry. You know your industry. You're the expert in your industry. You're the expert in your business. I'm looking at the numbers, and the numbers don't lie. So I can look at anybody's numbers and tell you where they need to be, what they look like, what the real story is, because it does tell a story. Your numbers tell a story. They tell a story of how profitable you are, how efficient you are. They tell a story of where your expenses are, what matters to you, what's important. And so from that need or seeing that need, not only for myself, because I can do all of those things if I need to, but I'm way more efficient when I focus strictly in the financials and allow other people to do the operations, do the sales, do the marketing. So everybody honestly is in that same boat. So, from that space or seeing that need, it allows me to come in and help in just that particular, just in the financials, but I don't have to know everything about the business. I don't even have to know everything about the industry. I can help people tremendously just in those areas and allow them to focus in their zone of genius and really run that company having good, solid financial backing and understanding where those come from, but not needing to be an expert in that space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like that approach. And, a lot of small business owners, like you said, they may be great at what they do. But when it comes to, the finances and the accounting side of things, they kind of overlook it and are like, hey, we'll just do it at the end of the year type. So I like that you say, I have a phrase that my dad says is stick to your own lane, right? Do what you're absolutely amazing at and then delegate to others who are good at what they do. So absolutely agree with you there. I'd love to kind of shift gears here a bit. You work with businesses, under 38 million in revenue, and it's a wide range, but it's pretty overlooked in some aspects. So what would you say are kind of some of the biggest financial mistakes that businesses in that range make, and how do you guys come in and kind of help them resolve those?
Yeah. So from a big perspective,
Yeah.
probably the biggest mistake that I see made is assuming what got you to where you're at today is going to get you to the next level. And so can you get to 1 million, 2 million, $3 million? Yeah, 100%. But the steps to get you to say 3 million don't get you to 30. It's a different game.
Yeah.
And so we, as business owners or entrepreneurs, we just like, I'm going to get in there, hustle, I'm going to grind, I'm going to make this happen. But I've seen some amazing hustlers, some amazing entrepreneurs that get to a certain level, and 10 million, I'll be honest with you, is a really big sticking point for a lot of people. But they can get to that 3, 5, 10, whatever. They get to that and they just can't get over the hump. And it's generally because they're trying to do the same things that got them there. And it just doesn't allow you to go past that. So specific example of that is that, in that range, in that, call it 3 to 10 million range, depending on your industry and what you're doing, you can do a lot of stuff on your own. And the staff that you have don't necessarily, need a ton of work. Like, you can pretty much manage those without having somebody in between. You can get away without having the greatest standard operating procedures, SOPs. You can get away with not really closely tracking your key performance indicators or your KPIs. But you can't do that past 10. Past 10, there's got to be somebody in between you. Have you ever heard the rule of 10 for employees?
Remind me.
Okay, so the rule of 10 for employees says that nobody can adequately manage more than 10 direct people, right?
Yeah.
And so, how that plays out is if one person, let's say you as the owner, you have a staff of 10, and you try to add in 4 or 5 people. Yeah. Those 4 or 5 people need to fall underneath one of those 10 that you're currently, supervising directly or managing directly. Otherwise, you're hitting too wide of a scope, and you can't correctly manage 15 people. It's just not possible. And I've had tons of people argue this point, like, I've got a staff of 20. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's awesome. So who helps you with that? Well, I manage it. Yeah, but who helps you? Well, my wife, she comes in, she works 30, 40 hours, and she really deals with the employees on the HR and their payroll and this. And one of my guys, he's really great. And so, he makes sure that all the sales got, so you have people in between, right? That's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the direct hire is really what I'm talking about. So as you grow and you scale, that middle manager is a really tough hire because as entrepreneurs, we want everything to be perfect, right? And so there's a guy, I want to say it's Dan Martell, but I may be wrong, the rule of 80, that says 80% done is 100% awesome. But that's a hard piece to come to. As an entrepreneur, we want everything to be 100% done correctly. But if they're getting 80% of where you would be, that's 100% awesome, because that 80%, especially if you've got 10 people doing 80% of what you would do, your 100%, 10 times 80 is 800%. Like, that's really great, right? And so you get to focus on that high level stuff. So it's the big thing is realizing that what got you to where you're at today, while amazing and great job, congratulations on getting there, it doesn't get you to the next level. And so they hit burnout. They're stuck at 10. I can't get past 10, I do this, I can't do that. You got to mix it up, so it's almost that like failing forward. If you get to the 10 million and like nothing really ever changes and you're comfortable at 10 million, you'll just stay there until you hit burnout. It's almost better to hit 10 mil and have some failures that force you to rethink what you're doing and force you to look at new avenues that can help you to get past that 10 mil. So I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it's different. It's very rarely continues the same thing, gets you to the same place. It generally falls into that. Like some other things that I see a lot are cash flow. So I said a second ago, cash flow is king, right? But cash flow is everything. It is the lifeblood of a business. You can't spend profitability, right? You look at your P&L and it says you made $1 million. You're like, oh, my P&L says I made $1 million. Well, if you got $5,000 in the bank and $10,000 worth of payroll coming up, you're in a bad spot. That $1 million in profit don't matter, right? You got a $5,000 miss on your cash flow. So cash flow is a really, really big deal, and it's very complicated to get a handle on unless you understand the numbers or you have somebody that works for you that understands those numbers and can give you those forecasts. Because the thing about cash flow is you need it when you need it. You don't need it in a week. You need it when you need it, right? And so same thing. You got $5,000, you got $10,000 payroll. Those IOUs don't cash very well. Hand out IOUs to your employees and see if they show up on Monday. It usually doesn't work out. So you need it when you need it. So you have to anticipate that well ahead of the need. You have to budget. I know everybody hates a budget, and I hate a budget in the sense of we're only going to spend this on this. But if you look at a budget in the sense of like a forecast, like, hey guys, if we spend $20,000 on marketing, that's going to generate $100,000 in sales leads. Cool. Let's spend $20,000 to get 100,000. If
Yeah.
you're looking at that forecast, it's good. If you just say we're going to spend $20,000 and no more, but you don't look at what the results are, that's not the way to go. Because you spend 20, but maybe you only get $20,000 in sales leads. So now you're
Yeah.
negative because those sales leads come with expenses. Or maybe you spend 20,000 and you get 200,000 in sales leads, right? And if I can spend 40 and get $400,000 in sales leads, I'm going to spend 40, right? That's great. Let's keep rolling. The more we spend, the more we generate. So it's knowing what the results are. Again, from a budget perspective, what do we spend? What are our results that we need?
Yeah.
Which is really more forecasting than budgeting, but it is a budget. So I think, cash flow and then understanding that what got you here ain't going to get you to the next level. I think those are the two biggest.
Yeah, that's absolutely gold. I think more owners need to hear that. A lot of business owners, they want to do everything themselves, like you said, and you can't scale when you're trying to do everything. You have to master the art of delegation and being able to have people that you trust do the work that you want to do. Even if it's not, like you said, to the 80% of what you could do. If you have 10 of those people, it's way more than you could do, right?
100%.
Totally.
Yeah. Or 800%.
800%, right? Totally. Byron, I'd like to switch gears here again. I know you're the CFO at Black Tie Moving and now UDT, both fast moving, high paced environments. How did those experiences shape the way that you lead your business today?
Yeah. So with Black Tie, when I came into Black Tie, it was, a much smaller company than it is today.
Yeah.
And they were doing a lot of things right, which is why I really enjoyed the majority owner as a friend of mine and great guy. And I met him and I kind of saw the vision, saw what he was doing. And I knew that they could be doing a lot better. As much as I like this guy, I'm going to criticize him for just a second. Great dude, so take it with a grain of salt. Probably one of the biggest issues that I saw was like sales, 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 right? And he really wasn't looking at like what the profit is. I asked him, I said, what's the vision? And he said, I want to be the biggest moving company in the world. And, which is great. I love it. I love him for thinking that way, for having that vision. But the reality is the biggest moving company in the world doesn't necessarily mean it's the most profitable moving company in the world. In
Yep.
fact, to get to that level, you're probably the least profitable moving company in the world because you got to make decisions that are just based in growth and just in like becoming that
Yeah.
don't take profitability into account. So it was good to come up against them because of the way that he thought was that like, hey, let's just grow this thing, let's make it the biggest that it is. And then on my side, I'm like, hey, I just want to be the most profitable. I don't care how big we are. I want to make the most money of any moving company out there. Like that was my focus. So having those two conflicting sides was really good. Another one of the owners, Jonathan Caldwell or JC Caldwell, he was an operation genius. And so with his operational insight, making these things work, and with Dustin Black, who was the original founder, majority owner, him wanting to be the biggest out there, really driving that growth, and then myself saying, hey, we got to be as profitable as we can. So I'm watching every expense. I'm looking at the sales. Like, does that make sense? Does that profit? If not, we ain't doing it. So that combination of those three was just massive. And then we brought in a sales guy. We brought in this amazing sales lead that took over as VP of sales, and he just absolutely crushed it in that space. He knew numbers. He understood operations, but he was a sales genius. So all of a sudden, we had these key players and key positions, and it was like steroids for the business. So it was great. And so
Yeah.
through that, I realized that there's things that you need to have. Like if it's just me saying profit only, we're not doing it unless it makes a ton of money, blah, blah, blah. That's not always going to win. The drive it, let's make it as big as we can possibly get it. That's not sustainable because if you're not making money, you're not growing. You don't have anything to fund the growth.
Yeah.
But you also can't just go, well, hey, we're just going to be the most efficient operation possible, and who cares what the expenses are? That won't work either. So you've got to have all these key pieces. And, I like to call them hats when I talk to people. I'm like, how many hats are you wearing? And it breaks down to the C roles, your C-suite, right? Your CEO, your CFO, your COO, your CSO, your COO, right? Your Chief Executive Officer.
Yeah.
Big picture kind of runs the whole thing. Your CFO, your Chief Financial Officer, your COO, your Chief Operations Officer running operations, your Chief Sales Officer, CFO running sales, chief marketing officer, running your marketing, making sure that those leads come in so that sales can close them. And then of course there's CIO, which is your intelligent. There's other C's, but those
Yeah.
those are the big ones at the top. And if you have all of those covered, that's the right mix. But they have to be able to interact well. And one of the things I loved about Black Tie is that we were all really good at what your grandfather said, right? We stayed in our lane. And so by staying in our lane and really kind of coming together to build the company, we were able to see explosive growth and profitability. The company, grew very quickly, continues to grow. It's been really good. UDT, again, very similar thing. In fact, my business partner in UDT is Jonathan Caldwell, the original COO of Black Tie Moving that ended up being CEO. But anyway, so he's my business partner in that. He's an operational genius. And I know that he is so good in operations. I don't worry about it. I don't think about really anything operationally, and he doesn't really think about anything from a financial perspective. And we also have learned from, real lessons, a couple of knocks on the head, a couple of things we've done wrong, that we're very good in those spaces. So we have to find the people in the other spaces that can fill that. And we don't try to micromanage them. We find somebody that's really good at marketing and we trust them to be really good at marketing. Find somebody that's really good in sales and we trust them to be really good in sales. And so, when you can fill those roles and stay in your lane, like your grandfather said, then that's the secret sauce. It's always been the secret sauce. It's just the ego gets involved in the entrepreneur and we think we can do everything better, even worse, right? And we won't take that on. We won't allow people to get into their zone of genius and help us to get to where we want to be, because we want to be the catalyst. We want to be the reason we're successful, right?
Yeah.
So, I can't remember who said it, so I'm going to steal their quote, but I would give them credit if I could remember, but I can't remember. You can be right or you can be rich. And so do you want the ego of I got us here, or do you want to be rich, right? And so if your ego gets involved, it comes at the expense of profit. It comes at the expense of the amount of money that you can make. So you got to check your ego at the door, and you got to trust the people to do what they can do in their zone of genius while you focus on yours.
Yeah, absolutely. That is amazing story. It sounds like you guys had the business Avengers. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to that is, where do you find people that are great in their respective fields, and how do you foster those relationships? Obviously if you're a bigger player, you can easily find those relationships, but for someone who's maybe starting out and needs someone who's good at operations or good at marketing or sales or all these sorts of things, where do you start, I guess?
Yeah, so I feel like it really depends on where we're at in the job market. And so right now, kind of middle 2025, the job market's a little better than it's been in the last few years, but I think this still holds true. The people that are looking for a job are not the pool that you want to pull from most of the time. I'm not saying that's an absolute, but the people that are looking for a job are probably looking for a job for a reason. I'm not saying you ignore those entirely, but that's not the pool I want to pull from. The pool that I want to be in is the people that are out there and they're crushing it, but they're crushing it either in a job that they don't love, an industry that they don't love, right? Or working for or with people that they don't love. And you go after the passion, you go after the vision, right? So if you're doing something that you know that somebody would absolutely crush it in, and you know they're a good operator for this other business or in this other industry or whatever, you want to sell them on the vision. Where can we go together?
Yeah.
I know you would be great in this. And it's a little bit of an ego boost for them. I get that. You kind of have to balance that. But you want to sell them on the vision of what you can do together. And again, you got to take your ego out of it. If you're like, hey, come to work for me because I'm the most amazing boss ever, that never wins, because you're not. You're just not. So, but if you can sell them on the vision of, hey, we can do this together and we're in this together and I believe in you and I trust you and I know that you're going to crush it, right?
Yeah.
And then you trust but verify. It's I trust you to do the things that you're going to do, but I need to see it. We need to communicate. We need to coordinate this thing. It doesn't work. You don't work in a vacuum. We work together. And I don't want to be in your space. I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm trusting you to get it done, but I need to see the proof that it's getting done. And that's in the growth, that's in the profitability, that's in the results of what you're doing. So I like to go after people that are already somewhere else, but aren't necessarily extremely happy in where their space is. I like people that are on the upward train, right? I don't want somebody that, is, they've been in the same spot for 30 years and they're just kind of done and they don't want to do it anymore. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that have maybe been with a company year, two, three. Maybe they've had some advancement. Maybe they're really starting to find their traction in their space. Operations, marketing, sales, whatever. And they're in that, and maybe they love their job, but they don't love the industry, or maybe they love the industry, but they don't love their job. And so you can play into that passion. You can play into that allowing them the opportunity to really shine in their zone of genius, and that's where you find the really solid people. And I'm really big on upfront. So when you talk to those people, when you meet them, you find
Yeah.
them, be very upfront. Like, you don't want to paint this rosy picture that's unattainable. You want to say, hey, I think you do the whole ego stroke, right? Obviously, get them excited. But then you have to say, like, this is what I want to do. Are we on the same page? And this is the metric, or this is the results that I need to see. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
So it's laying everything out as best you can so that you're on the same page, but getting the buy-in too. Because you can't tell somebody, I need you to hit $10 million in sales in the next 2 years. And they're just kind of nodding their head because you have good, paying good money. But at the same time, they're like, there's no way in hell we're going to hit 10 million in sales. But if the conversation is, this is my vision, this is how I want to get there, I want to be at $10 million in sales. I think it's possible if we do this, and this. What are your thoughts? Okay, yeah, never really thought about that. Yeah, okay, well, I don't know about 10 mil, but I think based on what you said, maybe 5 mil is reasonable. Hey, I hear you. No problem. I still believe in the 10 million. I believe that strongly, that, like, what is the reason we can't get to 10 mil? Oh, well, I mean, if we had doubled the staff, or if, we did this, if we reinvested all of our profits in the first 3 years into direct marketing, then yeah, we could probably get to 10 mil.
Yeah.
So now you've come to that compromise where they're bought in because they said, if we do this, then yes, we can get there. Okay, cool. So if I do that, we agree to do that, we get to 10 mil. Like, that's the metric I'm holding you to.
Yeah.
If we do that, I think we can get to 10 mil. So you're not telling them that. You're buying in. Like, they're buying into it. Now you have a partner in that expansion. You have a partner in the growth. You have a partner in the vision of where you want that company to go. And they're going to crush it because it's their plan. Not you tell them to do something. They created the plan. They're going to roll it out. So I think that's really, how you make that happen.
That's a great sauce. So it's essentially framing, taking someone who's maybe skilled and driven, but they're in a position where, they're not satisfied, I guess. So you come present this opportunity. That's great sauce. I think more people need to hear that when they're trying to start up and scale teams and whatnot. So Byron, you've seen the CFO role from every angle, right? Full-time, fractional, operational, everything like that. And it's kind of evolving now with the new fractional CFO that's been going around pretty commonly. Is where do you see the role going in the next, 3 to 5 years, especially in regards to smaller businesses?
Yeah, so I think it's a lot of the AI pieces, your software, everything else is going to come into play. And so where in the past, as a fractional CFO, it's a whole lot of data that we have to collect, and hopefully somebody else is doing the nitty gritty. You've got your bookkeeper level that's really just kind of running the books, making sure they're there. You have your controller, which is kind of that middle piece. They're collecting the data to present to the CFO so the CFO can interpret it. Still a lot of data. It's a lot of data collection. It's a lot of stuff you're looking at. You're calculating the numbers. Unfortunately, it's a lot of Excel sheets, which I know are boring to most people. We as CFOs get a little excited about it. But, it's a lot of that. But I think, like, with AI and where it's going and just, the rapid, adoption of these things, and the learning scale is insane. But with this, I think the data needs to be good. So it's verifying that the data in is good and it's comparable, it's realistic. So if you get that data in and it's good data, right?
Yeah.
Not the garbage in, garbage out, but good data that goes into the AI can give you some amazing insight. So, like, that knowledge, that information that you're getting that used to take a lot of time to get to is going to be way faster, way more readily available. But with that comes a little bit of information overload, right? So I tell people all the time, you can pull one lever at a time and you got to see what happens. If you're pulling multiple levers, you don't know what worked. So if we're looking at a problem and we're like, well, this might solve it, this might solve it, this might solve it. If we pull all three of those levers, you don't know what solved it. Hopefully it does. But you can't go back and you have a similar problem and be like, yep, let's pull all three levers. That's not going to work. So
Yeah.
we got to know what fixed it. So that information overload could cause a situation where we're like, well, I got blah, 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 blah. And we're going to do all these things and it's going to be amazing. It's just not because it's
Yeah.
too much stuff. It's too much stuff happening. You don't know what worked, what didn't work. You don't know what the effects are.
Uh,
So it's that massive amount of information. You've got to take it one piece at a time. And you need to be able to interpret it. And I do believe that AI is going to get a small piece of this. But I've been on record saying this, and if I'm wrong, maybe the Terminator takes me out later. But I think AI is going to be at max 90% there. I think realistically it can get you 80%. Maybe we get to 90. I still think there's going to be that human interaction that's at 10% of interpretation and like understanding what's happening and like holding back some of the like overdone things and being able to really see what's going on, not just from a financial perspective, but from an impact perspective.
yeah.
Yep. I have this conversation a lot. People say, oh, I've got to just get this, right? And so maybe they say, hey, I want to be at 20% profitability. Well, what's your time frame? Like, do you just want to be 20% profitable 1 month? Do you want to be 20% profitable for the whole year? Do you want to be 20% profitable from here until eternity? Right? Because if you just want to hit 20% profitability in a month, we can do that. Just fire everybody. The money comes in, you're going to be good. But you're going to be losing money next month because you got to hire a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So being able to make the calls that information that comes in that says, hey, if you do this, then this, does it make sense for the company? And like, does it make sense for where we want to go? Does it match our vision? Does it match what we're about? Right? Like, because the core values matter. With AI, as great as it's going to be, it's not human. And the emotional aspect is not really there. I don't know if it'll ever be there. That's the piece that I don't think we'll ever really have. So it's interpreting that last. You got to work a lot faster. You got to be able to do a lot more. But 90% of the work is done. So you're only really focused in that last 10%. So I think the industry, we're going to lose a lot of these glorified bookkeepers that are fractional CFOs, which does exist. There's people that have never done it. It's trying to remember the guy who said it. I think it was Grant Cardone's business partner, Brandon, that said this. He's like, I don't take advice from people who haven't been where I want to get to. He said, like, why would I take advice from somebody that's never built $1 million or $100 million company if I'm trying to build a $100 million company? And so why would you take advice from a fractional CFO that's never been there? I get people, they ask me, they're like, hey, I want to build this thing. I want to go public. I want my business on the stock exchange. I'm not your guy, right? I've never taken a company public. I've never done that. I've never built $1 billion company. I can't do that. Now, if you want somebody to get you to 100 mil, I've been there. I've been involved in that process, right? Do you want somebody to get you to 50 mil? Done it multiple times. Done it myself. Yeah. So I'm the guy for that. I'm not the guy for a $1 billion, multi-billion dollar company. I've never done it, right? Mm-hmm. So I would be learning the same time you're learning if you wanted my advice. So find the people that have been there, done that. Those are the best people for you. And I think the future is going to take a lot of that out because they're going to be making decisions that they've never done before. And they're learning the same time as you are. While they may have a skill set in numbers, they don't have the experience to really take that and run with it. So I think we're going to eliminate a lot of that. We've seen a lot of coaches, in the last, couple of years kind of falling off because, they need to be there, done that, and a lot of that is kind of fleshing out that people just aren't that great at it or they haven't done it. So they're just repeating advice they heard on TikTok maybe. So I think we're going to get into an area where you really do need to know what you're doing. Yeah. And you need to have had the experience or you got to go get it. If you want to be a fractional CFO, go be a CFO. Do that. Be a junior CFO. Be a controller, right? Yep. A controller is going to be under a CFO. They're going to learn an amazing amount of information. And there's no trading experience. The experiences that you have, the things you've actually gone through, and I would even argue the failures are even better than the successes. Those things are invaluable. So I would rather have a fractional CFO that's had multiple failures in their life and maybe 1 or 2 wins than the guy that's never done it. Well, I've never failed. Well, how many times have you won? Well, 0, but I've never failed. I don't want that guy. Exactly. That guy doesn't have any experience.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree with you there that in the next few years, especially with AI ramping up, the difference between people who have the skills and people who don't, I think it's going to be even dragged out even farther in regards to accounting and finance and the entire business world. like you said, people are not going anywhere. AI is going to get better, yes, in terms of systemizing and all the data, and it'll get more efficient, but people are always going to need to be there, especially top tier strategic advisors, CFO, CEOs, that sort of thing. So I think, like you said, I think it goes back to pick your lane, right? Like you said, if you're someone who wants to be a CFO, get in the controller role first, master that, fucking crush that, and then eventually, maybe you move up the ranks. But trying to be something that you're not, people are gonna see through that, especially in this new era of technology. So, absolutely agree.
100%.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally.
and the AI piece is, we do a lot of tax strategy as well. It's another
Yeah,
big piece of our company. And, the what used to take us hours, to build these tax plans, or let's just say tax analysis. So, we used to do these and you had to charge for them because you'd have hours into this. We'd have to, go through all their taxes, figure out where they were missing, where we could have savings, sometimes literally doing taxes that were already done to figure out what the cause and effect was. Okay, well, what if we did this? How does this affect the taxes? Where can we save the money? That process was hours.
yeah,
And now we have an AI program that gets me 80% done in seconds. So I'm literally doing a tax analysis in less than an
yeah,
hour. What
yeah,
used to take 5 or 6 hours of the team's time, I might have 30 minutes into sometimes, right? Like,
yeah,
and it's to get close, I can get you 80% of the way there in like a minute, but to get that last little bit,
yeah.
maybe 20, 40 minutes, depending on how complicated it is. So
Insane.
like, I've already seen that and it
Yeah,
just keeps getting better. And I do believe it's going to be 90%, right? Like I'm going to stand on that again. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think it's ever going to get us 100,
yeah,
but it's going to get us really close, and 90%, not to steal Dan's 80%, but like 90% is really fucking awesome.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'll take that all day long.
Hell yeah, totally.
Yep.
I know, absolutely agree. I mean, it's crazy how fast it's evolving too. I'm sure you remember, when all the new AI, when all the AI tools came back out, what, in like 2019, 2020, they were garbage. And
Oh,
now
yeah.
it's absolutely insane what they're doing. So I think just exponentially going to grow, and it's going to morph a lot of different industries. And I'm excited to see where it goes, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
We're invested in it. I'm constantly trying to update, looking at new things.
yeah,
We have a guy on the team that's pretty much his whole job. Like, what's the new AI? Play with it. So
yeah,
let's see how we can benefit. How
for
does it
sure.
work? Because we deal with a lot of sensitive information, ours has to be contained.
Yeah,
And so there's a big piece of that. Like I love what it can do, and I'm very guilty of this. I'll go on chatty crazy questions or like, hey, I'll just random questions to see what comes out of it. But I can't do that with client information, right?
yeah,
And so it has to be very segmented because we can't have that stuff go out. It's sensitive. So it not only do we see where it's going, but we have to be able to take that it does interact with the world, and we have to bring it in internal to be able to use it internally so that it doesn't go out. And you have to be very careful with those boundaries or those safeguards. So it does take a little bit longer for us to get the AI piece in there. But even with that, I mean, it's so fast. A year
yeah.
ago, if you showed me what our system can do today,
Oh,
a year ago, no way. This is
yeah,
crazy. There's no way that did that. You had to have preloaded that. There's no way.
yeah,
And a year from now, it's going to be even better.
yeah. Imagine, it's going to be
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's going to be insane. Byron, before we wrap up, what is one piece of advice, given all your expertise in this industry, that you would give to someone who maybe wants to become an entrepreneur, but, has no idea where to start and what industry they should go in, whether that's business or finance, accounting, sales. I mean, there's a billion different industries. What is your piece of advice to them?
Yeah. So go after your passion.
Yeah.
There's a Parks and Rec episode. I don't know if everybody has seen Parks and Rec. It's an older show, but it's really funny. There's a Parks and Rec episode where one of the characters, he gets the opportunity to pitch to a VC. And he's talking to another character on there, and he's like, I need a really good idea. I need something that's crazy profitable. So the other guy's kind of a bean counter, and he's like, oh, well, let's be the middleman to sell chemicals. So they kind of go through the thing, and the guy's like, oh my God, this is so boring, but they go in and he wants to have a good pitch. So he goes in, the VC says, what are you passionate about? Like, what do you love? What's the thing that like gets you up? And so he completely abandons this chemical, reseller pitch that was terribly boring. And he's like, Tom's Bistro, it's a upscale dining, blah, blah, blah. And guys like, restaurants historically, fail. Like they're, top tier. And that's true. Like
Yeah.
worst thing you can get into. but his passion for this restaurant shows through. And the VC's like, hey, if you're running it, you're involved, I'm in, let's do this, right? So don't worry so much on what's profitable. Don't worry about so much on like what you can sell or like what has a big revenue piece. There's so many opportunities out there. Go after your passion, something that you would do even if it doesn't make a profit, right? Because if you're doing it right and you're following the steps, the profit will come. But you've got to have the passion. You've got to want to do it. You can't go into entrepreneurship trying to replace your 40-hour-a-week job, right? Yeah. Entrepreneurship is the place where you swap a 40-hour job for way less pay, but you're working 120 hours instead of 40.
Yep.
You got to put in the work. But if you will do that and you're passionate and those 40 hours that you were doing before that maybe you hated or maybe were okay with it, maybe you had a couple of good coworkers, but it wasn't your passion, those feel way longer than the 100 hours you spend on something you're crazy passionate about that you absolutely love, right? Yep. So if you can find that passion and then find a way to monetize it, then you're going to win every time if you'll just stick with it and do the things that you're supposed to do. And don't be a revenue pig, right? Trying to get the highest level of revenue is not the way to go. You've got to make revenue, but you got to focus on profitability, because the more you grow, the later you focus on profitability, the harder it is to get your profitability up. If you're growing a company and you're like, I'll worry about profitability later, every time you double in size, every time you double in revenue, it just became twice as hard to make that company profitable. So you've got to focus on profit over revenue. I get it. You got to have revenue to get profit, but you got to focus on the profit early. Get your standard operating procedures in line, find your zone of genius, right? Dictate the areas that are not, and start replacing the ones that you're the worst at. You know, like if you're love it, then you're really bad at it. That's not bad, but you're still bad at it. So you want to replace the stuff you're bad at, even if you love them. You want to replace those. And in reality, you should be in the spot where you love what you do and you're really good at it. So wherever that falls in that C-suite, which is just, kind of a general framework, wherever that is, that's where you want to be. And then fill in the gaps. Find the other people that have that passion. Find the other people that believe in your vision, that want to go where you want to go, and get them on board with you. Like, don't be scared to give away equity. I see so many people that are like, well, I'm 100% owner of my business. I've never given away equity. Like, cool, your turnover is atrocious because nobody believes in your vision. They're just coming for the paycheck. And as soon as something better comes along, they're gone. So you either got to overpay them if you want to be 100% owner and keep them in the vision, or, get them locked in. The golden handcuffs is not a bad thing. Like, hey, you believe in this vision. I believe in this vision. Let's win together. Right. And give up a little equity. It doesn't have to be immediate, but let them kind of earn that equity. Let them show you that they believe in your vision and that they complement the areas that are your zone of genius with their zone of genius, and win together, because 100% of zero is still zero.
Yep.
Now that's a reality. If you own 50% of a $100 million company, you got a $50 million holding, right?
Yep.
That's
I saw a quote. It was like, I'd rather have a small piece of a watermelon than an entire grape, right? It's better to have a small piece of a really good company than try to be on your own all the time, and you're not going to succeed. Sorry, but God, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to say something.
I know, and I see that too. We own a bunch of different companies. My wife and I, we're partners in literally everything. We owned a business together before we even went into business. Before we got married. So we've been partners, business partners, life partners, you name it. We've been together for forever. We're our own best friends. We love each other to death. She's the person I would rather be around than anybody else on the planet, which I know, most people just gag. But really, she's my best friend as well. But we've learned over time that we don't need to be 100% owner. Like I said earlier, like my zone of genius is financial. And so I constantly bring people in. I'm quick to be a partner in something if that's what it takes. Some of my favorite companies, I'm small owner. Like, I've got a 5% stake in a company that literally has one of the greatest owners ever. I love this guy. I love his passion. I love his energy. We're 5% owner, but it pays really well. I'll be honest with you. That 5% pays really well. We've got others that were 10, 20. We got a few that were 1/3 or 30, 33% owners. We have 100% ownership in a few companies, but mainly just because, they've done fine the way that they are. And we don't have the person yet that the equity needs to go to. But I'm not opposed to it. I would be completely open to it. because I've learned over time what you just said. I want to own a little piece of a watermelon. I don't want to own the whole 100% of the grape.
Exactly. Yeah. And making other people successful. I saw another quote. Making other people successful will make you successful, right?
Oh yeah.
And tying on what you said before is, even if you're passionate about something, it's not successful in the beginning, it makes those 12-hour days that much easier if versus, working a 6-hour job, 6-hour, 8-hour shift. That's something that you absolutely despise. And another thing on that is, in the industry, whatever you choose, whatever passion, I feel like clients and customers, they can sense if someone's passionate about something and actually cares about what they're doing versus, if they're just bullshitting for the check. So I think that definitely adds on top of that as well.
No, yeah, I agree. I can't tell you how many times I've received the best compliment that I've ever had. People say like, well, you just don't really seem like a CPA. Like, I'm just kind of surprised you're a CPA. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
a compliment because CPAs are pretty boring.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that. Like, I absolutely love it. I take it to heart. When people say that, like, I'm good with it. And I'm not trying to diss on other CPAs or CFOs, but for the most part, it's a pretty dry industry.
Oh yeah.
But my passion shines through. I'm still a dork. I'm still as dorky as the rest of them. I literally love what I do. Like, I
Yeah.
love every piece of it. And so that comes through. When you love what you do, people don't need to love your industry. They're going
Mm.
to love your energy. They're going to love your passion.
Yep.
And they're going to want to do business with you either as a customer or they're going to want to work with you as an employee or potential partner. But
Yeah.
that passion's got to be there. It's got
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I would not be able to tell you're a CPA. Most of my family, I come from a line of accountants and CPAs. They're all, 3-word responses and whatnot. So that's surprising.
Yeah,
You know how it goes.
I see it all the time. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
if you have trouble sleeping, let's just go to a tax conference and be out of the light.
That's a good one. Oh my goodness. Byron, this was a killer episode. I really enjoyed it. For anyone in the audience who wants to learn a little bit more about you or connect with you guys and learn more about your businesses, where's the best place that they can find you at?
Yeah, so I'm in my 40s, so I'm a Facebook guy. So just to be clear, we have Instagram, we have the TikTok, we have all the socials, but
Yeah.
I'm a Facebook guy. So yeah, hit me up on Facebook. It's probably the fastest way to connect directly with me. You
Yeah.
can go to the website. It's very easy to find. CFOAF.com. CFOAF stands for exactly what you think it does. .com. CFOAF.com. That's going to be either there. You can reach out there. Hit me on the social medias. We're on all of them. I think it's the CFO for mine personally, and then the business is CFOAF. But yeah, hit us up on any of those, man. Always happy to talk to people. Happy to answer quick questions. Like I get that a lot. People have a very specific, general question. I get them on social, like Instagram's really big for it. I'll get, a couple a day, like, hey, saw that you're CPA. What do you think? Or like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Can you give me some advice? And I can go general, but I don't really represent them. So it's got to be general advice. Always
Yeah.
happy to answer those. And if you like the answer, then yeah, come to work with us. We're always taking on new clients. I think we're the best tax strategy firm out there. I really feel like I'm probably the best fractional CFO in my space, that under 40 mil space. I really believe that. And I'm very passionate about what I do, and I back up all of our work with guarantees. So we don't want to get paid if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
And we have a 4X guarantee that we put in place with all of our tax strategies and everything else. So we really do back, what we say we're going to do, not only with passion, but with a guarantee that the results are going to be there.
Absolutely.
I think that's very important.
I love that. For anyone in the audience who's listening, who needs some clarity in their situation and someone who's going to be a fucking powerhouse, please reach out to Byron. So thank you guys for hopping on, and thank you, Byron, for being here.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks to all your listeners.
Of course. Thank you guys.